So today I'll be discussing about the different oxygen requirements of bacteria. So basically, bacteria are categorized on the basis of their different oxygen necessities for their normal growth. Some bacteria require, basically they can't even survive without oxygen. Others can grow well in the absence of oxygen as well, but others only grow in the absence of oxygen. So basically, the bacteria which do not use oxygen for growth, basically they don't possess the enzymes which are required for the neutralization of toxic effects of the oxygen. But the bacteria who require the oxygen for their growth have these enzymes. That's the reason they are able to grow very well in the presence of oxygen. Okay, so there are many categories of bacteria on the basis of their oxygen requirements. So first one is the obligate aerobes, as the name is already suggesting that it's obligatory for them to grow in the presence of oxygen. Obligate me is comes from the obligatory word, and aero means, as you all know, aero means oxygen. Okay, so what are these? They are the bacteria which require oxygen for growth. Okay, sorry. They basically can't grow in O2 absence. In its absence, they can't even grow. Okay. So and I'm gonna be also mentioning the enzymes it possesses, due to which it neutralizes the toxic form of oxygen. Catalase. They possess the enzyme catalase, and as well as SOD, which stands for super oxide dismutase. So basically, I'll be mentioning the role of these enzymes in neutralizing the toxic oxygen in a while. But let me just explain in a form of a diagram. Okay, so this is a test tube. This is a test tube, okay? Okay, so just suppose that there is a solution inside this test tube, and just suppose that this portion of the test tube has no oxygen at all. No oxygen at all. Okay. But this part of the test tube, the upper part, has oxygen. So it has lots of oxygen. Okay. So what will happen? The growth will occur only in the presence of oxygen. Okay. The bacteria are growing. These are the bacteria, the dots I'm showing. They only grow in the place of test tube where there is oxygen present, and they don't grow at all in the place where there is no oxygen. Okay, so these are the obligate aerobes. Let me just label bacteria. Okay, so there are aerobic bacteria and obligate aerobes. Okay, so these are the first category. Let me just rub it so that I can explain the next one. Okay, so the second type I will be discussing is the so this is the second one, facultative anaerobes. Okay, anaerobes, just this is a point to focus. They are not aerobes, they are anaerobes. Okay, so facultative anaerobes uh, are the bacteria which are able to, like, they can grow in they are basically, they show like they grow in anaerobic medium, but they can like they also grow in the presence of oxygen. Okay, so basically they show anaerobic growth, but they are also able to grow in the presence of oxygen. But there's a twist. So, like, first, let me mention it here that they show anaerobic and as well as they can also show aerobic growth. Okay, so but there's a twist in this that they grow more well in the presence of oxygen. Okay, so they grow more well in oxygen presence. Okay, okay, and the about the enzymes. So they also possess the both of the enzymes which the obligate aerobes have, catalase as well as the SOD. Okay, which is the reason they are grow able to grow more like more better in the presence of oxygen. Okay, so let me explain with an example of a test tube. Okay, this is a shorter test tube. Okay, so just suppose there's a solution here. Okay, and just suppose that there is um a high amount of CO2 in this part of the test tube, and there is no um yeah, the other, sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah, and this part of the test tube has a higher amount of O2, okay? Higher amount, just suppose, and this one has a higher amount of CO2, okay? So what will happen? Where will the bacterial growth uh, be visible? Okay, so bacterial growth will be evenly throughout the test tube. Like bacteria will grow everywhere in this test tube, but the twist is that there will be less bacteria growing in the higher presence of CO2 in the test tube, but there will be a higher amount of bacteria growing in the in the place where there is a higher amount of oxygen. Okay, so these are the facultative anaerobes. They can grow in both the presence of oxygen as well as CO2, but they grow more well and they show more growth, a higher microbial growth in the presence of oxygen. Okay, yeah, these are the facultative anaerobes. Okay, so there are three more types left. So let me just go through them as well. Basically, sorry. Okay, so the third one is the obligate anaerobes. Okay, so as the name is suggesting, anaerobe by the way means that they are not able to grow in the presence of oxygen. They can not tolerate oxygen at all. No, okay, means obligate means obligatory. Okay, so what are these? These are the microbes that grow only in the absence of oxygen. They cannot grow in its presence at all. Okay, only in presence of O2, CO2. Sorry. Okay, and about the enzymes, like you can just guess that they don't possess either of the enzyme required for the neutralization of toxic oxygen. Okay, they don't possess the SOD as well as the catalase enzyme. Okay, which is why the oxygen is really toxic for them, and that's the reason they are not able to grow in its present in all costs. So with the help of a test tube, let me explain it. It will be more clear. Okay, so uh, just suppose that there's a medium in it, the culture medium required for the growth of bacteria, liquid medium, sorry. And just suppose that there is a higher amount of O2, higher amount of oxygen in this part of the test tube, and there is a higher amount of, or like you can say that there is a low amount of CO2 because I want to like show you guys that even if there's a low CO2, they can still grow well. Okay, so where will the growth occur? There will be no growth in this region. Okay, there will be no growth. Just remember, in this region, there will be no growth. Okay, so just let me write that there is no growth in this part. So what will happen? There will be a lot of growth in this region. These are the bacteria I'm drawing as dots. I'm sorry, it's messy, but as long as it's clear. Okay, so there will be growth in this region where there is CO2 present. These were the obligate anaerobes. It's obligatory for them that they don't grow in the presence of oxygen. Like they can grow at all, even if the conditions or the pH is adjusted. They can still not grow in the presence of oxygen. Okay, so the second last one, the fourth one basically are the aerotolerant. Okay, so these are really interesting ones. Others are also interesting. Aerotolerant anaerobes. Okay, so as the name, you can just guess that aero means oxygen. Tolerant means that they can tolerate oxygen. Okay, what does anaerobes mean? That no oxygen. Okay, so basically they they like only grow in the absence of oxygen, but there is a twist here. Like they show anaerobic growth, but they tolerate oxygen well. They can tolerate oxygen. Okay, so basically oxygen has no effect on its growth. Like oxygen doesn't inhibit its growth, and basically it doesn't also uh, help it grow. It's just basically it has no effect. Oxygen has no effect, and they tolerate. About the enzymes, we can like it's pretty evident that they possess one of the enzyme but not both. They possess the SOD enzyme, which is the reason that they tolerate oxygen, but they don't possess the catalase. So I'll be just erasing the catalase one so as to like make it clear that they don't possess the catalase enzyme. So it will be easy. Okay, so explaining with the help of a test tube. Sorry, this is a big one. Oh, why is it not being okay? Okay, I'm sorry, but this is a bit messy. Okay, so just suppose that this is a test tube with the culture, with the medium required for bacterial growth, so as to assess. Okay, so just suppose that there is a higher amount of CO2 in this region of the test tube, and there is a higher amount of O2 in this region. What will happen? What will happen is that the bacteria will grow in this part of the test tube, but they will continue to grow in this part as well. So basically they are growing evenly throughout the tube. Oxygen has no effect on their growth. Okay, so basically they show even growth throughout the test tube. Okay, so now let me just discuss the last one, which are wait a second. The last one are the fifth one basically. Microaerophiles, not anaerophiles. Okay, so what does the name suggest? Micro means little, like really less or small. Okay, so let me just erase it so I have space to write the basic requirement. Okay, I can write it here basically. Small. What does aero mean? Aero means oxygen, okay? Microaerophiles. So these are the bacteria which require less amount of oxygen for growth. Okay, so this is a really important point for its definition to show growth. What's the twist? They can't grow in atmospheric oxygen where there's an excess amount of oxygen. They also can't grow in oxygen's absence. Okay, so this is a really comprehensive definition that these are the microbes, bacteria, which require a really less amount of oxygen to grow, but the twist is that they don't grow in an excess amount of oxygen, while they can also not grow in the absence of oxygen. So about the enzymes, they possess the enzymes catalase as well as SOD, but the twist is that they don't have much of these enzymes. They are present in very minor quantities, which is the reason that they don't grow in the excessive oxygen. Minor quantity of these enzymes is present, okay? They are less basically. Okay, so by the with the help of a test tube, I will explain so that it's more clear and a more more clear. Just that. Okay, that's a bit okay. Fine. So just suppose that there is a solution in this, and there's a researcher who's trying to assess the growth of bacteria if there's different amounts of oxygen and in this test tube. Okay, so just suppose that let me use which color? This color. Okay, just suppose that there is a higher amount, not less, higher amount of oxygen in this part of the test tube. And just suppose that there's a little part where there is a really high amount of CO2 present, okay? And the last one, this part, the end one part, has a lower amount of oxygen, okay? Lower amount. What will happen? What will happen is that the bacteria will grow only in this area. Only in this area, not this area as well as this area, not. Only in this area where there is a low amount of oxygen. No growth. And here as well, no growth. Okay, only growth in this region. Okay, so these were the microaerophiles. And about the enzymes, I'll be just quickly telling the action of these enzymes, that how do they basically neutralize the toxic effects of the oxygen. Just give me a second. Okay, So what were the two enzymes that I mentioned? SOD. Okay, so what does SOD do? So basically, um, the there are dangerous type of radicals which aerobic respiration forms, which are the superoxide radicals. Okay, and these are like they damage the molecular structures of bacteria, but the bacteria who require oxygen for growth, they have this enzyme. Basically, what does this enzyme do? This was the superoxide dismutase. What does it do? It breaks down, it acts on the superoxide radicals, and what does it do? It breaks down these radicals. So this is the radical, okay? This is the radical. So the SOD enzyme does break down this oxygen and it reacts with two molecules of hydrogen. And what does it do? It forms hydrogen peroxide as well as O2. So it basically neutralizes the toxic effect of this one. It's dangerous. Okay, you can just, if you don't have the SOD, okay. So SOD enzyme does basically it helps to neutralize the toxic superoxide radicals, the SOD enzyme. It does this, okay? And then the other enzyme, what was it? The other enzyme was the catalase, okay? If there's space here, okay. So what does the catalase enzyme do? So this hydrogen peroxide which is formed, it is also toxic in a way. I mean, yeah, it's toxic. It's basically many antibacterial drugs use this chemical, hydrogen peroxide, to kill the bacteria. So for the bacteria to prevent this hydrogen peroxide, the bacteria which like they are susceptible to oxygen, they they are not the bacteria, yeah, the bacteria which are susceptible to the oxygen do not possess the catalase enzyme, but the bacteria who grow in the presence of oxygen, they have this enzyme which neutralizes the toxic effects of the hydrogen peroxide. So what is the reaction? Basically, this is two molecules of hydrogen peroxide, and what does the catalase do? So catalase, this is the catalase enzyme doing this. Okay, so what does the catalase do? It breaks down the hydrogen peroxide into water plus oxygen. Okay, and just a quick info that humans also have catalase, and that's the reason that hydrogen peroxide can't be applied to wounds as they are quickly broken down into oxygen and water. Okay, so let me just, that's enough. Okay, I can just write it somewhere. So let me just yeah, this is a quick info which is really important if you wanna go into the field of microbiology. You must know which chemicals are to use as a disinfectant and which can't be used. Okay, so this is a very important thing that humans possess catalase enzyme, and for this reason hydrogen peroxide can't be applied to wounds as H2O2 quickly breaks down into water and oxygen. Yeah, that is it.